Hey there everyone. Today we have a bit of a different video. We are here in the Poke Data app and we're going to check out some of the EX era sets. We're gonna have first here a bit of an overview. So this era, the EX era, as you can see, most of the logos for the sets include EX. This era was still before Pokemon basically gave the names of the eras to, they made it match the games. So we have Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon, X and Y, Black and White. Those all match the games. They also kind of did it, or not kind of did it, they actually were even more thorough with it when it came to the fourth generation, because they had Diamond and Pearl, then they had Platinum, which was basically a continuation of the generation. It didn't change much. And they also had Art Gold, Soul Silver, so the a full era of sets dedicated to those remakes. While when it came to, for example, X and Y, which had the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, they made some sets themed around the third gen, but they didn't make a basically a era or a group of sets dedicated uh, to it, as far as changing the design and whatnot. So this era, although you could call it the Ruby and Sapphire era, was just called the EX era, a bit like how before we had the E card and we had the Neo, and the Neo and the E card, they basically coincided with the second generation, but they weren't called gold and silver. So getting back to the EX era, as you can see here, we have the sets that we had. Obviously, alongside a generation, we also have its Black Star promo set, but that's not something that you can buy with packs. But you can see here Ruby and Sapphire, Dragon, Sandstorm, Team Aqua and Team Magma, Hidden Legends, Fire Red and Leaf Green, Deoxys, Team Rocket Returns, Emerald, Unseen Forces, Delta Species, Legend Maker, Holland Phantoms, Crystal Guardian, Dragon Frontiers, and Power Keepers. Then obviously we had also these pop series, Pokemon Organized Play, but they aren't the standard product. So let's take a look at them. So here we're not gonna look at the value. We're going to look at the card set numbering. So this, they had these energies, the reverse hollow and the hollow. I believe these were hollow. Maybe they're generic energies. And what you can see with these cards, that they were in somewhat of a middle point between the design of the e-reader set and the what then became the EX era design. So what I mean is, obviously they have the e-reader symbol on the bottom left corner, and they had the 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 line at the bottom of the card was thicker, like it was with the e-reader sets. Although It was also thicker on the left side. So I never used the feature, so I don't know if you could read any information on the left side or just the bottom. But when it comes to the edges, the bottom edge is much thicker than the others. They have also more of a circular pattern. They were it was a new generation, but they were still bringing some of the old features. Now, what is interesting is the Japanese cards did away with this design completely. So eventually, the American or the English cards, I should say, the ones not in Japanese, English, and all the other European language translations, they all eventually came to look like the Japanese cards already did from the start. So this was also the generation where EX cards were introduced, and not just EX, but this kind of how should I say, maybe special gimmick or type of enhanced card. Yes, there were some exclusive type of cards before, like the Shining or the Crystal, which had some restrictions. Like I think you could only have one per deck, but they weren't as targeted for the competitive play, and they were much rarer. Uh, Definitely much less available. These EX ones were a more available type of ultra rare cards with obviously a different kind of design with the silver borders and the hollow foil, but they were also designed to enhance the competitive aspect of the game. And here in the first set, we had quite a few. We had eight, and it was a bit of a throwback though. It was interesting that the set is called Ruby and Sapphire, yet we have mainly Gen 1 Pokemon except for Sneasel. And it seemed like what they were doing was basically replicating or adapting older cards into the new metagame. We had a lot of cards here that were popular in the base set era, like Electabuzz, like Magmar, Scyther, Hitmonchan. We had Chansey, which was, like the HP king uh, when it came to basic Pokemon. And these ones are all basic. But Chansey had this kind of HP back in the base set when there were no EXs, where you didn't take two prize cards. We also have Mewtwo, and Sneasel is Neo card was, I believe, also had the beat up as an attack, was pretty popular. So interesting decision when it came to the EXs. Uh, I think that over time they definitely uh, got these type of cards down better. Here you could see that they obviously were versions of cards that were popular competitively before, but they were still much more measured when it came to their stats. As the generation went on, they definitely made more significantly uh, powerful cards. Now, as we keep going through the set list, here we have all the trainers, and obviously we have the reverse hollow versions accounted for as well, because there are different cards. And unlike today, where we have the sets grouped by typing, And within those types, they are grouped by the Pokemon family, the evolution line. Well, they had just now three types of Ralts and two Poochyenas. Three. Well, um, this time or in this era, they added by rarity. So here we have basically the common cards, which are most of the basic Pokemon on the set. And as we go on, as you can see, also they're not necessarily paired up by type or anything. I think they're paired up alphabetically. Obviously, since we're going from the highest number to the lowest number, we'll see the progression backwards. But yeah, now we're on to the uncommons. We can see a lot of stage 1 Pokemon. And now, this part of the set, in contrary to the EX cards, this is actually very representative of what are the cards in the Ruby and Sapphire game, the Pokemons, I should say. Um, most of them are Gen 3 Pokemon that we get here. The final evolution starters. Obviously, some Gen 1 still, because they have some representation in the games, also Gen 2. And here, as I was mentioning before, we can see well with the borders. Funny because some of these images don't show the almost feel like a coke code or some kind of texture there on the bottom that supposedly could be read with the e-reader uh, machine. But most of these arts don't show anything there. And we come to Agron, again alphabetically organized, so A, B, C, and yeah, we have the reverse hollow and the hollow version here. Again, as another tell that they were adapting throughout the generation. Actually, in Japanese, I think they even divide it into two groups. Now, let's see other sets of this era. Here we have Dragon. And in this one, we had a full set of secret um, Charizard cards or his evolution line. And now for the EXs, we have a bit more representation for the third gen with Rayquaza, with Latios, Latias, but we also have I guess a nice mix. We have Ampharos, Dragonite, Golem, Kingdra, Magmarmuk. So we have all three generations represented here on the EX uh, group. Still, yeah, we have higher HP here. Obviously, all these three are three-stage Pokemon, something that we didn't have on the base set. They were all basics. So it does make sense for the numbers to go up when it comes to HP and attack. Obviously, you have to invest more turns to get these cards. Here we have the trainers. And then again, we go from the commons all the way up to the hollow rares. Very cohesive art. We have obviously some some old favorites, Yukimori type of artwork. They it seems like a plastic figurine of a Pokemon, a real life picture. One thing is easy to note though is that in these sets we had various versions of the same Pokemon on the set. We saw there with Magnemite, see here with Geodude, but still, the art is, I'd say, pretty adorable. And we also have some, which is, I guess, a early days Pokemon staple, which is some Kensugimori official art plastered on a real world background. Here, great, I'd say, very great artwork here for Bagon. Really like it. Very crazy artwork for Wishcash. And here we can't really tell for the picture's not clear enough what's the illustrator, but it almost seems like it's Tomokazu Kamiya, the one that a lot of people rave these days for his artwork. Can't confirm nor deny, but I'd say it is. Again, more Ken Sugimori official art. By official art, I mean obviously all of these are official art, but that's kind of the standard, the first portrait of the Pokemon. And this Gyarados card is amazing. Just the artwork is so fierce, so imposing. I think this one is not a hollow. Must not because the price seems pretty low, but if I could, I'd make it a hollow. Again, another very beautiful Skarmory look. And the reverse hollows here, they still have a kind of very close to the current style, where it's the part outside of the illustration that shines. But within this third gen era, the reverse hollows will basically become hollows with a set stamp, and I guess you could say a more generic or standard hollow pattern. And with apps we get to the end of the set. Now let's see, Sandstorm. So again, a very diverse type of EX cards, a lot of choice of Pokemon. We have at the time all generations represented, a bit of Gen 1, actually quite a lot of Gen 1. Poor, Almanite, and Almastar didn't get the same privilege that the Kabutops and Aerodactyl got. But we do have Gen 3 here with Aggron and Gardevoir and Wailord being done by Rio Ueda. And Rio Ueda definitely made a lot of cards, but he wasn't the only one. Ikaro Koike, I believe it's how you say it. He also did a lot of illustrations for the Axis, and his style was very different from many. Here you also have an Typhlosion, not just an Aggron. And what he did was he had seemingly kind of like a top down angle, kind of somewhat oblique. And he had a very saturated look to the Pokemon. very dark with a very abstract background, a lot of the time going along with the typing of the card and kind of swirly. Not always going with the typing of the card, as you can see here with Agron, but it definitely has a kind of a dark look to it. The Gardevoir, it is lighter, but we still see the very saturated tones on the Pokemon. Same thing goes for the Aerodactyl. Some of his darker parts almost get lost within the background. It is a style that is hard to get into at first, and it seemed like it was exclusive to the EX cards. But as you look more and more, it, at least to me, it has grown on me. I feel like it's something very unique, something very much of its time. So again, we have the usual trainers. Again, usually the sets or the regular Pokemon seem much more Gen 3 representative, while the EXs seem to be more, I wouldn't say random, but definitely more varied. Here we can see really nice artwork. Not saying that today's artwork ain't nice, because it is. It usually is, but probably it's not nostalgia just talking, but these cards from this era definitely capture a certain vibe that just resonates with me. Like the Pokemon do seem to have some kind of attitude, some kind of edge, but in other ways, some kind of also gracefulness to them. Hard to explain, but they're very much of its era. And I guess since I'm a 2000s kid, I would definitely feel connected with this style. And look, an Umbreon that won't break the bank. Here we have Steelix. In the Japanese version, Steelix is a hollow. This price might not be accurate. I think it is a hollow in this set, but to me it's a beautiful card. Arcanine also very beautiful artwork. Yeah, I guess it wasn't a hollow in this in the American set, because I know that obviously there's not necessarily a one-to-one with most sets of Japanese versus English, and I think that that card was moved around, but I didn't actually know that it was, I guess, demoted from a hollow to a non-hollow. Still a great artwork though. And we end with Armaldo. So here, Sandstorm obviously has a bit of fossil Pokemon. Has some more, not all necessarily all Pokemon that you'd see in the desert, but it has more of that feel to it. Now we go to Team Magma and Team Aqua. Let me organize it by again. There you go. So we have the secret rares, Absol and Jirachi. Very good looking. For the EXs, we finally get EX forms of the starters. Swampert, here portrayed as a ground type, which is very interesting since it's a water and ground type, and usually they like to keep the like the the perfect triangle of water, grass, and fire typing. But here with Swampert, that his first EX, they went with the ground type. You know, one day I guess we'll get a dark type Venusaur to represent his poison type. We'll see. We also have the legendary beasts. The Suicune is beautiful, I gotta say. We have the Cradily, and we have Blaziken again with the signature Ikaro Koike style of the saturated looking uh, Pokemon, the top down view, the swirly background. While here we have a Rio with a style, but this coloring, they had something, especially with this card, they had something in mind. It doesn't quite look like other Rio weather cards. This one fits much more his vibe, I'd say. Now, let's go a bit quicker through the trainers. Oh, and this set is some, I guess, controversy because they had a very different kind of style. It was pretty much all like 3D renders, which for the time, I guess, with the technology, what they had available, I guess the Pokemon didn't have as much detail. Their models weren't as, well, like I said, detail as something that would be hand drawn. These are exceptions, the Gen 1 Pokemon here. But I'd say probably the Team Magma and Team Aqua Pokemon have this 3D style. In my opinion, you know, they did this with this set, and they did a thing of its own. To me, it gives it his identity, and you know, if they were always afraid to try out new things, maybe we'd have never gotten Delta Species Pokemon or whatever other innovations they came up through the years. So I'm fine with the set having a different kind of art style. Yes, not all cards look amazing, although this Groudon looks very nice. And I also really like the Celebrations version. And I don't think you can buy that card for €1. I like the Claydol, sorry, the Aggron as well. It's a set with its identity. It's not the best set ever, but I definitely think it's worth a look. And here we have Hidden Legends, and this one already, this set, as we can see, fully uh, got to the look that the Japanese cards were already adopting. It has the look of with the symmetric borders that the rest of the series went on to have. This video is now half an hour, so I'm gonna cut it here and we're gonna keep on later with the rest of this generation.